I, I just want to tell a quick story about coaching. So when I first started coaching, I had, kids that were the best in the country. I was at an SEC school. And one of my first track meets, my main athlete, she's a 100-meter runner. She, won Georgia State 5A, but she was really struggling. She'd had a very, very hard freshman year, and I was joining in her sophomore year.
Yes.
And I would have these little talks with them before they would go out to compete. And I said, who do you think you are? I would always ask them that question. And then I would wait for the answer. And she said, well, my family told me that I was FloJo.
Okay.
And I'm not. And she started crying.
Mm.
And I said, no, you don't have to be anyone else. You can be your full self,
right,
and move through the process of what it takes to become fully yourself.
Yeah, I think that's important, that you become the best version of yourself. Mm-hmm. So thank you for explaining that. And right now we have an opportunity to ask some questions. And I don't know, does anyone have their hand up? But if you don't have
there's a question in the chat room.
Okay.
Bruce Berry asked you, how was it to run for the late great Dennis Craddock and Charles Foster, and then coach with them?
Okay, let me tell you, Bruce. Okay, I'm going to tell you. Okay, now having a long jump, triple jump coach, and a sprint hurdle coach, and you were number one in all of those things, there was a lot of infighting, right? So I would show up at practice at 2:30 and leave at 7. I would have to train with both of them. Charles Foster was unbelievably tough on me. In fact, I had never trained before when I got to the University of North Carolina. I had never trained. It was natural. Yes. I mean, I literally would train at competitions because I did so many competitions. One day he invited me into the office, and he was a world record holder himself in the hurdles, and he was very, very tough. And he looked at me, he said, Couch, until you figure out that you have to win in practice, you will not win on the track. He goes, you know how you go about your life and how you've gone about your life in every other way? You can't let those girls beat you up that hill. We had a big issue with hills on Friday because you couldn't walk on Saturday. I liked walking, but anyway, you couldn't walk on Saturday. And so I remember that conversation right now, Bruce, when he told me that. He goes, you got to beat Kendra. You got to beat Son. You got to beat. And I was like, beat Kendra. She runs 50 something in the 400. I've never ran a 400. Like, he goes, no, you have to believe that. And so then that day for me, it became, I had to be the best at practice. I had to be the best in the ACC, I had to be the best in the country, and I had to be the best, of course, in the world. I wanted to be one of the best ever. And I'm happy to say that there was a point in my career where I was 7th best ever in the long jump and the hurdles. Okay, now after the Olympics, it's a wrap. But
that's outstanding. That's outstanding. So thank you for sharing that. And when she talks about her coaches, you see her lighten up. She was also a renowned coach at the University of Tennessee. Yeah. And this shows about the mental stresses in life, sports, and business. So right now we're talking about some of the changes that you did in sports. And even though you may not be an NCAA athlete or an Olympian, I'm sure we have a lot of weekend warriors out there. And with our Joetta Fitness Challenge coming up very soon, it's the 28th day Joetta Fitness Challenge coming up. With the challenge coming up, we're going to have an opportunity right now for you to check in with anyone that wants to tell us about what they've been doing to get ready for the challenge.
Okay, while we wait for that, I just want to still let the audience know and everybody out there that the reason why people become athletes, good athletes, is because they have good mentors, they have good coaches. Like the mindset has to be, instilled in that person. Like a lot of times, Sharon just said, in high school, it was so natural where she would go to the meet. And trust and believe me, I coached a long time, high school and youth kids and, professionals. And to have them do 2 events at a meet is a lot.
Wow.
So you do 3 and you push it up to 6 because there's trials, semis, and finals. And then in a long jump, she might jump 2 times in the trials and then come back and jump once or twice. That's still, and you get practice. You got to go down the runway. That's a lot of work. And I applaud you for being 51 right now and still looking as good as you are to go through all of that to get where you needed to be.
Yes.
But Tyrone, back in the old days, we couldn't choose, we're going to jump once. We,
Yes.
we
I was
gonna
trying to make it good for them.
and wait. Oh, no. It was every time. One of the toughest things that happened to me in high school, it was my senior year. I already had a full scholarship. We were in Fluvanna. It had been a big meet up to my life until now.
Yes.
It was raining like it was a tropical storm like yesterday.
Wow.
And my coach made me go out there and compete in every single one of the events I was signed up for. And I'll tell you, I don't get mad that often, but man, I was mad.
Yes.
But I did it. And what that did was it taught me that every time it was raining, and I coach in high school now, and I tell my high school boys, when it's raining, I'm like, it's on. You know why? Because everybody else is worried about the rain, and we ain't worried about the rain because we've done it in the rain.
You prepare, so you're mentally preparing your kids, and actually your mental preparation started in high school and then college and transcended into where you are now. So we're going to do our next segment, which would be the business and professional side. And for all of you who are trying to figure out how you're going to pivot through the pandemic and how you're going to remain relevant or do something differently, this segment will be very important for you to take some notes and listen to what she has to say. And it will also help you through our fitness challenge, which is starting in September 1st, which will be the Joetta Fitness Challenge. It's a 28-day fitness challenge. And in this fitness challenge, we're talking about condition, nutrition, and rest. And because of our amazing guests, we're going to also make sure you focus on your mind, having a calming mind. So Sharon, if you could speak to the importance of getting your mind right as you pivot through the pandemic and back into professionally, and then if someone has their own business.
Okay, I love this question because I've actually come full circle in my career in terms of business. I started out in business. I had a job before I graduated from college. I interviewed on campus and started working, mostly because as an athlete at the time who was a field eventer, I wasn't making much money. And I had to have a way to take care of myself. So the first thing is always having like a plan, right. Knowing where you want to go. One of the things I ask my people I coach in mental performance is, what is it that you know? Because that is really all you can bring to whatever goal, whatever plan that you have. So when you do that self-assessment, that self-awareness, what that's going to lead you to, the next thing is I stopped to be an athlete. There are some sacrifices and some costs to the choices that you have made up to this point. Do not be discouraged by those. Those are a part of the journey. Those are a part of what gets you to this moment. Now, will it feel comfortable? It shouldn't. Will it feel like you can do it? Not yet. You haven't done it yet. Yes. Nelson Mandela says everything seems impossible until it's done.
Right.
And so where I am in this process is after I stopped working in business. I worked for Kraft, for Franklin Covey, for Quest, for large corporations. I decided to be a full-time athlete. Well, the hurdles decided that. I was 9th in the world and then 7th in the world. So I went to run for Adidas. But after that, I was still focused on what is my career going to be?
Yeah.
So I went back to business. And unfortunately, I have to tell you that it's not all a happy story, and it's not for you either. Now, that doesn't mean that it's not a part of what will get you to where you want to go. Mm-hmm. So I went to work as an executive trainer for a shoe company, doing what I love, which is, making people better. And then they got bought. And so I got a package and decided to take a year to raise my kids. They were young at the time.
Yes.
And then after that, I was starting to see a therapist, which I think is so important because I had always had coaches. Understand, everyone, coaching or having someone that is skilled at helping you be better in whatever field you want to be in is essential to good mental performance, because you have to be able to talk through with someone else the direction that you're headed. Because if you just talk to yourself, sometimes the answers you give yourself, they're not adequate. And so what happened was I was talking to a therapist, and he said, you know what, Sharon, I was working a job that I hated. I'm not going to say the company, but it was just not a fit for me. I was in management. I was rising up really quickly, but it wasn't for me because I was mispurposed. And he said, Sharon, sometimes, and I'm a believer, so God will make you uncomfortable so that you will move, right? And so the reason why you're wanting to start a business, the reason why you need to get going after this pandemic is because you need to move. You need to move on to the next season. This season was over for me, which was being in business. And who knew? Yes. I interviewed at the University of Tennessee and became an SEC coach. And it was an amazing 4 years, but it was a season. I also, I'm on my 4th career, I think, but because of PI, this is a mental performance tool that I use. PI is prioritize, it's invest, and then it's energy, PI. When you prioritize, which I prioritize being a mom, right? In order to move through my career to get to where I am now. Then I invested time, energy, expertise. I got certifications. I went back to school. I got a master's. I'm pretty much done with my PhD, but that all was not easy. Joetta, I had to go.
Sharon, I'm gonna stop you for a second because we're gonna move forward. We have questions from people, and I don't want you to get distracted and go on a tangent because you said something very important, which was you have to be able to move. And your story, you have the energy and motivation. Yeah. What do you say to the audience that doesn't have the motivation or the help, and they're struggling right now? I mean, not everyone's going to be able to deal with the pie and things like that. So, what points can you give to someone who's struggling right now mentally as they go back to life or trying to change professions?
Yeah, that's great, Joetta. I'm a person that it seems like I'm always up and that I have a lot of energy, and I do, but I am an only child. I've spent a lot of time on my own. And I also had some traumatic things happen to me as a lot of people have, which means I go through depression. I go through depressive episodes, especially when I don't think I can do something. And when, you're just a normal person. I mean, I'm not, suiting up and racing anyone. I'm just a flesh and blood grown woman trying to raise kids. And in those moments, what I do is I really use my spiritual eye. I'm a person that journals. I write out, because when you can write it out and then reread it, you can make more sense of it. Yep. So journaling is really important. Self-talk. You really have to monitor what you are telling yourself. And journaling allows you to do that. Another thing is behavior change is not linear. It is not A to B to C to D. Yeah. It can be unbelievably cyclical. So try this. If you start paying attention to your thoughts will then become what you believe. Right. And then what you believe will alter your behaviors, which will result in the action that you need to take in order to be able to move towards the bridge to where you are and where you want to be is in the process. Mm-hmm. Most of the time, we don't get started because we're only thinking about the outcome. Right. One of the things as an athlete and a coach that I was particularly gifted, and that was from God, was that I did not mind failure or the process. Successful people learn how to fail.
Mm-hmm. And we always say failure is not an option. It's just a nagging reality that keeps us focused. So thank you for sharing that. And I hope you took those notes down at this point, I want to do our health tip, the Joe Time health tips. And that's a very important part because we want you to be healthy mentally, physically, and spiritually. And the Joe Time health tips will allow you to get to that point. So the Joe Time health tips.
Okay, each week we come up with a different health tip, and I try to do a lot of body stuff. You know, we did kidneys, we did heart, we did lungs, and everything like that. So we're gonna stay in that range because right now there's another variant that's out, and that's a Delta variant, and it might be one after that. I heard this somewhere else, but so these are some of the things that I'm gonna talk to you about that messes up your system or gets into your system. So the upper respiratory infection, URTI, okay? So what happens with this is you can really self-diagnose yourself. I did that a couple of times. Sometimes when I had a virus in my system where something wasn't right, I had pain in areas in my sinuses, my nasal was congested, wheezing, whole body fatigue, fever, hoarseness, you know, all of those things. Everything that you see on this first page is what happened to me at times, because remember, I was a first responder. So being a firefighter going into an uncontrolled environment that's 1,000 degrees, a lot of times I was crazy or I took my mask off. So particles would go into my throat and I wouldn't feel it till 3 days later. So I would have a upper respiratory infection. And the first thing I would have to do is call my physician, go there, and he would do a diagnosis and say, yeah, your lungs are inflamed, or you have, you know, a sore throat, or you might have a flu. So pay attention to your body. And these are what is the fastest way to get rid of an upper respiratory infection? That word right there, fastest, is no such thing. Trust me, you can do it, but it's going to take time. So nasal decongestant, they just don't work with some people. You know, that's over the counter, Robitussin or whatever you need. You can use it, but I like natural herbs and everything like that. Steam, you know, like you can get like what I did. I remember when COVID first hit, and everybody was doing certain things online.
Lemon, yeah.
They was putting lemon in a pot and steaming it and putting a towel with their head.
Yes.
I was doing some of everything. They was just, you know, getting the nasal cup thing, and you breathe into it, you put water into it. I did that too. Then certain things to reduce your fever and your aches and stuff, you know, and acetaminophen, different things that you can take to reduce your fever. Okay, now this is really important because right now, September, I think 22nd is the end of summer, and then we go into the fall. So pay attention to these little things that clean out your lungs, and it helps out a lot. You can do honey and hot water. You can do green tea, cinnamon water, ginger and turmeric. You know, you can do apple, beetroot. All of these things will help flush your lungs out, so that way you can start loosening up some of that indigestion and that stuff that clings into your lungs. So right now, can an upper respiratory infection turn into pneumonia? And my hand is up because, like I said, December the 10th, I thought I just had an upper respiratory infection. Called the doctor. The first thing he said was go to the pharmacist and pick up these items. I picked them up. You know, I started taking them. What happened was it just made it worse. The next thing I know, I wind up having pneumonia. So viruses that infect the upper respiratory tract may also cause pneumonia. So I had a virus and it caused my pneumonia. Influenza virus is the most common. That's the flu. Treatments depends on the severity. Like I said, I had to go to the doctor because I can't shake off pneumonia. I had to get treatment. And rest and medications relieved me 4 or 5 days being in the hospital. And I went through that phase. So 7 months later, I'm back to normal. So right now, if anybody feels a little congested or you know, tightness in the chest or, you know, wheezing and stuff like that, get checked out. Call your doctor. Sometimes they even got virtual online things now where you can see what's going on. But, you know, once my doctor went inside my throat and saw that I had something, you know, I had to take care of that.
Yeah. Well, thank you. That information has gotten so good, and so often people are always asking for fast things, but sometimes you have to just take your time and be patient. So that takes us to, does anyone have any questions that they want to ask Sharon? And if you don't have a question, I'm going to do my shameless
I
plug.
got one. Let me get one
Okay.
real quick.
Get to it. Yeah, fine.
Let me get Ellis out the way because he was
Okay.
asking before.
Yes.
Okay. He said, how important are internships for student athletes?
Mhm. Well, that's an interesting question. When I entered the University of North Carolina, I wanted to be an educator. I wanted to be a teacher, but I was a franchise athlete. I had to be at every event. I made every national championship. And the way that national championships worked was I was in the ACC. So we started conference at the end of April. We would be out of school by the end of April, very beginning of May. And then we would wait for a month before the national championships would happen. Well, a lot of internships, especially back then, teaching, student teaching, they did not work around the student athlete.
Yes.
Now it's different. Now there are many opportunities. You just have to make sure as a coach that you are communicating to those athletes that it's important for your next career. You don't want to minimize what they're doing right now, because they will want to only be focused on the present moment, which is good. That's a gift. So you have to be thinking about their future and having a plan as to how you're, as a coach, how you're going to make sure that you're communicating with their department, with the things that you're trying to do. I will tell you that as an academic advisor, one of the toughest days I had was a volleyball player crying in my office because she wanted to be a special education teacher.
Wow.
And because of how teaching, the student teaching is set up, we had to change the major. I fought against it, but that was because I knew both sides of the world. So internships are really important, but it's really going to take the coach and the support personnel, like at the athletic life center, to make sure that athlete has that opportunity.
And that's important to talk about that with student athletes. And it's also important, for you to talk to the people that are in the professional world. And what do you have to say to them that they're saying, I don't want to go back to work. With the new strand out, and they're getting so stressed out. And I hear that word stress used a lot. I think a lot of times people use the word stress interchangeable for not knowing what to do.
Oh, yes.
What do they say? I'm stressed. And so I try and tell my daughter and people I speak with that everything is not stressing you out. Mm-hmm. So let's try and get a hold of that. So what can you say to people who are using the word stress, and what can you give them to get them calm?
Well, the bottom line is stress is a constant, and how you think about it decides whether it's going to damage you or whether it's going to push you. So I call it going and growing. If there isn't tension, you don't get muscle, and I call it your emotional muscle. Yes. Sometimes you have to use what I use is affirmations. Whatever it is I'm trying to do or feel, I will work myself through it. So everything is not going to feel great.
Yes.
And if it doesn't feel great, it doesn't mean that you're not supposed to do it.
Yeah.
It just means that you're supposed to do it anyway and not feel so great while you're doing it.
And grow from it.
And that is okay.
It's funny, we talk about pressure and stress. So yes. A lot of times before I became a firefighter, I didn't know what that engine was capable of.
Right.
So on the engine, the only words you kept hearing was, give me more pressure for the hose.
Wow.
So in my mind, I'm going, hold up, I don't like pressure, but the hose is not giving enough water. The fire is too big. You got to rev up that pressure. And guess what? I became stressful because I'm only 180, but I'm holding a hose that when they give me more pressure, I got to really buckle down and fight.
Right.
So now I got pressure and stress working against me, but the bottom line is the goal was to put the fire out.
Right. And your part in it. So when thinking about this idea of stress, it can be mitigated this way. I call it my 3 C's, okay? Competence. The reason why you're able to hold the hose, the reason why you're able to do your part in that kind of process was because you had practice.
Yes.
A lot of times people say they're stressed out because they don't know their purpose. They're confused. They haven't done, they're not prepared, which means they're not ready to perform.
Yes.
So even, Allen Iverson is one of my favorites. And I play all the time the video about practice because he was trying to explain that, of course, I'm practice. The result of me being one of the best in the NBA is that I practice. So competence is one of your best stress mitigators. Get competent. You don't have to be competent at everything. You got to be competent at what you're trying to do. So for example, Joetta, if you're trying to return to work and you have these emotions and these fears, they need to be faced. You need to tell yourself the truth. Do not avoid trying to lie to yourself. You can lie to everybody else. You cannot lie to yourself. So the truth is very important about where you stand in terms of your competence. So in order to get ready to go back to work, you have to start practicing what that's going to look like.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Because you don't have a choice. After you practice what that's going to look like for you, then it'll build your confidence. Confidence does not come from the air. The reason why I was able to move through all the different phases of my life, even in business, even starting a brand new adventure on Monday morning for the University of Tennessee system in people development, is because what I do is I prepare. Mm-hmm. I practice. Mm-hmm. And listen, you can't practice what you don't know.
Yes.
You can't. So don't try to do that. Just what is it that I know? Bring that. So we have competence, we have confidence, and then guess what? You will not have a problem competing, but you will have a problem if you don't have a plan for when those emotions come up, when the fear comes up. And we call that in our field, in sports psychology, we call that arousal management. There's an optimal amount of arousal that you should have at any given moment, right? So right now, I'm a little bit higher in my arousal because I get excited. Yes. But I'm breathing and I'm, being quiet when I need to, and I'm thinking through things, and I'm using all of my tools. So one of the ways is to be able to compete is breathing. Breathing is an unbelievably even stop right now, everybody, and think about how you are breathing. Are you breathing kind of up here? Because if you are, that's not enough oxygen for your brain to be able to process the information and then keep it in.
So you want them to take deeper breaths, one, and also remember your three C's. So that's very important for you to be able to do to transition. So with that information that she gave you, it doesn't only apply with sports, it's also in business. We have some questions that we're going to go to, and when we get ready for that next question, I'm going to do my shameless plug because I have a book called Joetta's P Principles for Success, Life Lessons Learned Through Track and Field, and we have the P's: have a purpose, get prepared, be patient, get perturbed, and persevere. And because of that book, I was able to come up with the body perfume called Joetta's Body Perfume. So that's my shameless plug. We have a question that we're going to get to, and we're going to come back to your shameless plug too, Tyrone.
What shameless plug?
You must have one. You got to have one.
I got about 10 of them.
Okay, we have one after this question.
Okay, Sheila, what's your question?
Hey, Sheila.
Hello. Hi. I was listening to what you were saying about stress, and I'm a first responder, a nurse, and I do understand that you were talking about ways to train your brain mentally. And I think I just wanted to hear a little bit more about that, because sometimes I have to work, of course, with high degrees of self-confidence and trying to block distractions. But that doesn't always work because you have to be strong for your family. What you go through as a provider, a first responder, your family goes through as well. So sometimes you need them to help you, but they're always looking at you for the, one with the strength and the one with the mental capacity to work through almost anything because you've done it, you've been resilient. But what happens when you times that you what did you have to say to yourself in times that you had to explain how to get through these tough times?
Yeah, Sheila, thank you so much. That's a wonderful question. And it's something that I thought about a lot during the pandemic. I was home for about 18 months before I went back in working with students. And, I came up with this idea called the 4 A's. And the first one is awareness. Sheila, I think it's really, really important that you are absolutely aware of where you are in the moment before you make a decision as to what you're going to do next. And then once you're aware, and you just have to be truthful. And in that moment, if you're like, I am struggling, say to yourself, you're okay. You're okay. I don't say to myself, it's going to be all right. I speak into myself what I want myself to be. And I have to be okay to be a mom, to be able to be a leader, and for people to be able to trust me. Once I make that awareness, I acknowledge I'm okay. What do I need to do next? So you have to use your knowledge. What is it that you know about the situation that you're in trying to be successful? Once you acknowledge that, then comes the accountability. We sometimes put the accountability up front without really checking in with ourselves, deciding what we know, and then taking on the responsibility. And once you take on that accountability, which this is what I'm responsible for. Now, I will tell you, before I get to action, because action is my fourth, is in my PhD program, it has been unbelievably tough working full time and raising 2 teenage boys. Well, actually, I have a man now. He had his first day of class today at UT. But one of the things that I struggled with most in the PhD program was imposter syndrome. And right now, that is kind of what I hear you telling me, that is one of the things that you might be struggling with that you're not even aware. And with imposter syndrome, this is the definition of it. It's when high achieving individuals are marked by an inability to internalize their accomplishments and a persistent fear of being exposed as a fraud. In the moment, sometimes when we need to be the strongest, it's the moments that we feel the weakest. And because I'm a believer, I've just believed that when I am weak, he is strong. And that's how I've grown the most in holding. So I have a mentor. She is the dean. She's an African-American woman. I'm doing research with African-American female athletes it's never been done before, which is tough because when it's never been done before, there's a lot of no's, there's a lot of not understandings. So I asked my mentor, who's the dean of the College of Education out of Seattle, Cynthia Dillard. I said, how do you hold the grief of what you are experiencing with the people you're trying to help? And your personal tragedy or
so what
trauma.
did she say, Sharon? What did she say? So we can get to a couple. What did she say? Let's finish this. We have
she said, everything is not yours to hold. And that is what I will share with you.
That was good. That was good.
You have to decide what is it that I am to hold, and then set about the 4 A's of holding on to only those things.
So a lot of times, Sharon, I hear you. I do this a lot too, throughout my seasons. Like a lot of times people start January 1st and they put down a resolution, more money, lose weight, get a better job, all these things. But every year I put down January 1st to December 31st, 365 days. Every year I said, I want to become better than I was last year. And I want to feel that I'm doing things that my mom would be proud of.
Right.
My mom has been gone for over 21 years. So a lot of things that I don't do it in that normal, this is my resolution, but it's actually the resolution for me, but it's not in that form. And like when I started, maybe when I retired in 2014, me and Joetta talked about the vision boards, and Oprah was doing them, all this and that. And people would put a vision board up and they would put down certain things. And I would just put the vision of family and put a picture up there, family. Concentrate on that. Whatever
Right.
it was that I wanted, I would put it. I wouldn't put, somebody would put a Bentley or a trip
Right.
or something.
Yeah.
Mine was always in the sense of focus on that, because I told Joetta my 5 F's. She has her P's.
That's your shameless plug now?
Yes,
Okay.
my 5 F's were always in this order. My faith first, then my family, then my finances, then my fitness, and then my friends.
Right.
The only 2 that always gave me a hard time were the last 2, fitness and friends, because they can move away or just get on my nerves. But
Right.
fitness would go up and down too.
Right.
But I never changed the top 3.
Well,
So-
I mean, one of the powerful things that my sports psychologist, Gloria Balligay, taught me when I was an athlete, you were talking about seasons. Think of your life, and I'm talking to people who are maybe trying to transition out of the pandemic, who are headed back to work, who might be changing jobs, who might be looking for a job even.
Oh, yes.
Understand that you have so many slices of your pie that is your life. And there will be moments where parts of the pie are bigger than other parts. So for example, me as a mom, my slice has changed a little now that I just have one at home.
Right.
Which means that my pie at work might be able to grow.
Yeah.
Or as I'm finishing the dissertation, that piece of the pie will need to be a little bit bigger than the other pieces. And I think that we have to be okay with that instead of trying to keep all, Sheila, trying to keep all the pieces of the pie the same. It's not, it's just, it's just not
That's a
possible.
good analogy. Yeah, that was good the way you explained that. We have a couple more questions we want to get to. The show is going by really quickly.
Leslie
So
just wanted
yeah.
to know what the last A was again. She didn't really
Oh,
hear.
action. Once you take responsibility, once you can count what your part is, then you can take action, whatever that action is. So for example, if this fitness challenge is coming, I'll tell you that I spend a lot of time at my desk writing. And so I'll go for a couple of weeks thinking I'm going to get all this done, but then I let my health, and let me tell you, the reason why people get upper respiratory infections, I looked it up. I know they say don't look at WebMD, but I kept getting them, was
Yes.
stress. When your body cannot fight the stress that you are putting on yourself by putting too much on your plate at one time,
Right.
then it fights back in the form of colds. I had a lipoma that had to be removed. Like your body starts to basically tell you.
React to everything that you're going through, right?
So instead of reacting, Joetta, I like for people to respond. And the only way you can respond instead of react is to have a plan. One of those things is using imagery. We in mental performance, if you see yourself where you want to be doing what you want to do well before you ever do it, then when you get there, you don't have to get ready because you're already ready.
Let me stop you right there. My mother would always say, I stay ready, keep from getting ready.
Yes, she did.
We're about to get ready to end this program. But before we do that, Sharon, could you please tell them some information? And why are you looking at me like that?
Of course, you remember what your mom said. I like that.
Yeah, I always do. We have mommyisms, and she has a bunch of them.
I like to hear that because when you said it, I was thinking about when your mom said it. That's
Okay.
Yeah.
So Sharon, could you please be so kind as to slowly tell them how they're going to be able to reach you? Sharon will be a great job, not only for student athletes, but for you. If you want to have someone to go over some information about your life, please contact Sharon. She has a great service. You see her contact information at the bottom. Sharon, could you please go over it again so they can contact you?
Yeah, so As I said earlier, I've come full circle in my 10 and a half years here at the in Knoxville, and I'm starting a position in HR, employee development, which will be more of a 9 to 5er. So I am a mental performance coach, which means I work with any performer, and you are a performer. You're breathing in and out. You're living life. That means you're performing.
Right.
And so you can reach me best through my email. And, you know, I have Instagram, I have Twitter. I'm easy to find. Listen, Sharon our couch. You can't, I don't know all the fancy, you know, naming myself. I completely bring my full self to whatever it is that I'm a part of. So you can find me.
Sharon, the 236 as well. So give them that email. The complete.
Okay, the email is Sharon Couch 236 at Gmail. Sharon Couch 236 at gmail.com.
Okay, good. Thank you very much for that information. And look, everyone, I'm sorry we couldn't get to all of your questions.
Oh my
In closing, we just want to say if anyone wants to be a sponsor, please contact us at joetimefitness@gmail.com. If you have any questions or any comments, please contact us there as well. Sharon, as always, it was a blessing to have you on the show. You had so much to say, and the time just went so quickly. Tyrone, I know you want to say something in closing, as you always do.
No, just thank you so much, Sharon, and you're doing a great job with everything you do. Like I said, we always go into different avenues in our life, and this one right here is going to be another home run for you.
Thank you. You know, y'all are my favorite. So I'm not just a participator. I'm a fan.
Yeah.
And if we had more time, I would tell you how amazing Joetta has been and who she is in my life and all of that. But
Hey, that's a shameless plug.
That's a shameless plug.
that is and it's not just Joetta. It's the whole family. And Joetta took me to meet her dad in 1992 at the Olympic trials. I was 21 years old. I didn't know anybody or anything. And we are friends to this day. We had our children of the same age.
Yes.
I'm just so grateful that we're in this season of life together.
Well, thank you. So am I. We always say on the show, there was a question from Shirley Norman, but I don't know if she wants to ask it in closing. So if she does want to ask
Cheryl, ask me the question.
a question. But if not, we're going to get to the point where we have to say, it doesn't matter what road you take, but what you become along the journey. Thank you for taking this journey along with us this evening, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Again, please get ready for the next show. Next week will be a fantastic show to close out the month of August. And what we're going to do is we're going to have our fitness challenge. And we're going to next week show you some of the exercises and things that you can do for the challenge. We want you to make sure that you reach as many people to bring them on time with the Joetta Fitness Challenge. And Tyrone and I will be the ones orchestrating everything. As always, thank you. Be extraordinary. And we'll see you again next week. Thank you. Love you back. Bye-bye. Hey, we could hang up. I'm gonna call you back. I'm on the phone. Pick up your phone. And we're done.